Everybody's had some adventures. Everybody's had a few close calls. Everybody's got a story. What's yours?
Hey! Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 21 of Cool Story with David J. McNeil. This is the first new episode of 2021 and a great opportunity to thank you, the listener, once again for your continued support. I really appreciate it. This podcast has been a labor of love for me and has opened many new doors and introduced me to a lot of really fascinating individuals that I would likely not have met otherwise. One new opportunity that was presented to me recently, thanks to the podcast, that I'm really thrilled to announce to you is that the New York Times has invited me to be a panelist as part of a new short film series that they are producing. I can't tell you much more about that right now, but suffice to say that had it not been for the podcast, I wouldn't have been on the radar for such an incredible opportunity. So for that, I am truly grateful. This episode features a chat with a television host that most Canadians who grew up in the 90s and 2000s would know very well, the very charismatic Mr. Rick Campanelli. In 1994, Rick entered a contest and won the Canadian version of Willy Wonka's Golden Ticket when he won the Muchmusic Temp contest, which later evolved into a promotion to a full-time Muchmusic veejay position. We chatted about what it was like for a young music fan to suddenly be on the other side of the rope. We also chatted about Rick's jump from Muchmusic veejay to host of ET Canada, and all of the challenges and opportunities that new position offered him. But let's let Rick tell his story. Here's my conversation with Rick Campanelli. Hey, Rick, how you doing?
David, how are you today?
I'm doing really well, and it's nice to have you on the show. Thank you for taking the time. We had
My pleasure, and of course you're doing well. You're in Costa Rica. Come on now.
I am in Costa Rica. It's very nice here right now. How's the weather back home?
You know what, today it's not bad. A little mild. It got up to 6 today? Mm-hmm. So a balmy winter here in Canada.
Yeah.
Before Christmas Day.
Is it feeling Christmassy back home? I know you guys are about to go into another famous lockdown.
We are. Boxing Day. Is it feeling Christmassy? Not at all. I want snow on the ground. I want it to be at least -10. So we don't have any of those too, in terms of weather or climate. But, the lights are up, presents are under the tree, the ones that Santa hasn't brought yet. So yeah, in some regards, it's feeling like Christmas, but some it really isn't, because we can't hang out with family this year, or extended family this year, and that's difficult, man. Every year you get to be around loads of family members. We have a lot of family members that we see
you guys
every
do a big
Christmas. Yeah. So it's going to be the first time that we don't really get to experience that. It's going to be different.
Yeah. No, it's going to be very different for a lot of people. This year for sure. I did a bit of research on you before we chatted, and before we were to chat, and we're I think you're four days older than me, so we're right about the same age.
That's right. January 70, right?
Yeah, 70. I'm on the 9th and you're on the 5th, right?
On the 5th, that's right. Wow. Just a few days later, you came along.
Yeah. And so we're kind of from the same generation. It's funny. Yes, I'll read you back something, So, when you Google somebody and you get all these nonsense bios with all the facts and stuff like that, they're messed up. I Googled you and I found this one. It's Rick Campanelli, net worth. Rick Campanelli has a net worth of $36 million, and he is tall with 5 feet and 8 inches. He was born from Roman Catholic parents who came to Canada from Italy. He continues to maintain a good-looking body, regardless his advanced age.
Oh my gosh. Couldn't be furthest from the truth. All that information, except my dad was born in Italy. And he came over as a teenager. But that's where the truth ends. Oh my goodness. 36 million?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I'd be on a yacht somewhere in the Caribbean. No, I'm just joking.
I know.
No.
Somebody, I guess, somebody, one of my neighbors here Googled me, I guess, had heard about my podcast and stuff. And she sent me a note saying that she found out I was worth $17 million and she probably should have married me.
Where do they come up with this stuff? Like, just because I was on TV in Canada for a few years, which isn't the same market, as we all know, as America. They got the market down there.
Yeah.
But it's crazy, these stats that people come up with and just throw out there.
Yeah, I wonder where they get those from. I think a lot of that information is culled from IMDb.
Yes.
And then maybe they maybe they do have the net worth for some people, and then they kind of look, oh, that person does about the same thing. So,
yeah. He does the same job. Yeah, put him in there. Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah.
So you weren't making the John Tesh money.
No. I wasn't making the Mark Steinis money, the John Tesh money. No, none of the above. Listen, we were in Canada doing television. That should tell you right there. Yeah. I'm still working on a big mortgage.
Yeah. You know what? You can make a really good living working in the entertainment business in Canada if you're a hustler and you work on a lot of different things.
That's true. If you're a hustler, yeah, it's a comfortable living. We pay the bills, and that's the main thing.
Yeah,
we paid for the diapers when we were buying diapers nonstop. So as long as you're able to pay for all those necessities, we're comfortable.
Yeah, I was listening to Eric M's podcast, the reinvention of the veejay. Yeah, and you were
so good, right? Isn't she doing a great job? Yeah,
it was really interesting. I listened to a couple of the episodes. Obviously, one of them was the one that you were on, and it was interesting. The two of you chatting because you guys kind of you had a similar job there, and you kind of hers was the generation before you.
That's right. Yeah. When I first started, she was actually, we overlapped like for maybe a month or so, and she was on her way out. But I grew up watching Erica, and gosh, she inspired me so much, as did Steve Anthony and Master T and all the others, Christopher Ward. But they all inspired me. I watched them religiously as a teenager, back in the 80s. I'm sure you did as well, David, but always dreamt about being there and working there. And I remember, I don't know if she aired this on her podcast, but I remember one of my first days, I got in there early and I was sitting at a desk doing some work, and I just happened to be sitting in Erica's seat at her desk.
There's a faux pas.
And it was like, I guess she was in a rush that day or was having a bad day. I don't know if I even brought this up with her, but she asked me nicely to get out of her seat and her desk and go somewhere else. But that was my first run-in, my first meeting with Erica, live and in person. Right. Now, Erica would have returned from a commercial break announcing that my entry for the 1994 Temp contest was the actual winner. So that was my first, the first time she uttered the words Rick and Campanelli. But no, Erica was so inspiring. She continues to be inspiring, and she's become a friend all these years later. So she's such a sweetheart, and she's got a good thing going there with that podcast.
Yeah. So for people who are listening, who are Canadians and kind of grew up in the 80s and 90s in Canada, would know Muchmusic very well. It was similar to what MTV offered. I think it was a better product. And you guys were known by everybody because young people tuned in, and young people often hung around and watched videos all afternoon after school kind of thing and all weekend, right?
Well, because to us, it was so new back then, especially in the 80s. Like, we would listen to music, but putting pictures to the words, it was so cool and novel back then. So yeah, I was addicted to music video.
And the releases were huge. Like I remember times when when Much would be ready to release, planning to release like the new Michael Jackson album, and they'd have the ticker on for 2 weeks in the corner of the screen, counting it down to the release of like black or white video or
the video, with Magic Johnson,
whatever.
Yeah. I'll never forget that. Yeah, that's right. It was the crazy. Interplanetary video debut. I remember they gave them different terms, but it was a huge deal. It's such a different ballgame. It's so different in 2020 than it was back in the 80s. which makes sense. But back then, we just, you're right, a 2-week countdown, but you wouldn't sleep. It was like Christmas.
And the audience wasn't splintered like it is today. Right. There was a certain number of stations that everybody watched. It wasn't like, these days where everybody's watching 1,000 different things on an Amazon Fire Stick or whatever,
right.
Or back then, young people were more likely than not going to be tuned into either Muchmusic or on a lesser extreme, maybe YTV. There wasn't a lot of places that young people were going to watch.
That's right. And we're talking all types of genres on Muchmusic. And, if you weren't into one genre, well, you got to know it while waiting around to see your alt rock video. You got to know the hip hop, you got to know the punk, you got to know the country tunes, you got to know it all. And that was the beauty of it too. Being introduced to all these different artists and their videos, and of course with the video directors. And it was just a beautiful spot to be in. It really was.
I had one experience being sort of in the setting during live breaks and stuff like that. And that was when I was, I think I was about 20. I went to the University of Ottawa. I was studying theater and communications there. And I also worked for the school's TV show. And I organized a thing where me and a couple people came down to Toronto, and we interviewed Erica M. This was probably about 1990, about 4 years before.
Okay.
You started from 94?
I was introduced in 94. Yeah.
So it's about 1990. And we showed up there and got to interview Erica, Master T, Dan Gallagher. He was,
Dan.
He was such a lovely guy. We lost him he was pretty young when he died.
Yes.
And Steve Anthony was there. It was just such a hustle and bustle, fun, high energy area. And you just never knew who was going to walk in the door.
That's right. Yeah. And people walked in the door all the time. Of course, as VJs, we knew who was coming because we had to prepare for those interviews. But you're right. Like on 5 days of the week, even Saturdays and Sundays, you'd be getting a band almost every day. Sometimes 2 huge bands every day. And Toronto was such a huge market for music venues, live concerts. When the big bands came into town, they came into Muchmusic prior to their shows. And if it was the Stone Temple Pilots opening up for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, well, both those bands came in a matter of a couple of hours in the afternoon. And like, where else are you going to get that in the world? It was so, so cool. The environment was, like you said, buzzing all the time. And there was some activity going on at all times, and it was live. And as a kid growing up in Hamilton, being passionate about music, and artists and bands, this was the place to be. And it was a dream come true. I was in heaven.
Now I was thinking about this the other day, because eventually Muchmusic started having a competition where the viewers would pick the new VJ. But when you came on board, it was actually called the Temp contest or whatever.
Temp contest. Yeah. They started this contest in 1994, and there was a movie out. I think it was Paramount movie called The Temp.
Right.
I'm not sure it was Kevin Bacon. I forget who the actors were in it. Anyway, so Paramount and Muchmusic were working alongside each other to promote this movie. Oh. And that's where this whole contest and promotion came into, Muchmusic selecting a Temp for the summer months.
Yeah.
So it started in 93. I entered the contest. I didn't win because I wrote something up on a little plain piece of paper and I faxed it into them. But I thought, you know what? This is a serious contest and it's big prizes involved, not just the money in the car and the place to stay, but a chance to work at Muchmusic for those summer months. So I made sure that my entry that next year was mind blowing. So I worked hard on it, and it took me a couple weeks to complete it. And they obviously loved my entry, and that's what set the wheels in motion for my TV career. Yeah.
Yeah. It was funny because when you were talking to Erica about it, I'd kind of forgotten that it really was for the temp job. It wasn't Rick's the new VJ. So you said you were literally temping and fetching coffees and stuff like that.
I was rewinding tapes. That was one of my big jobs.
Yeah.
We had to rewind the music video tapes back then. There was these old Betacam tapes, and press rewind. Okay, to the next one, because they didn't do that. They let guys like me do that. Temps.
Yeah.
volunteers, coffees. I worked in shipping and receiving for a while, delivering mail. I loved it. I got to know everyone in the building.
Yeah.
But you're right. That was the Temp contest. And then the VJ search contests were a totally different contest. But they always seem to have some sort of promotion going on, because you're right. Back in the day, and YTV, Muchmusic, these were like the go-to stations to tune into for that generation, and they always kept it exciting, even for the viewers. Okay. Yeah. So if I'm a viewer, if I have a dream of being there one day, well, that dream can come true. And it did for a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
Yeah, no, it's amazing that there's a lot of talent that worked at Muchmusic. People moved on to exciting and interesting things elsewhere, and all times executive positions at other places in the music industry.
Yes, no doubt about it. Yeah. And not just the people that worked there, but the people that came through on a daily basis. Like, we're talking like A-listers all around. Like, it was incredible.
Who were some of the favorite people that you got a chance to connect with? People that well, bands, of course, that I grew up listening to. Now I was honored to interview them. The Chili Peppers, for example, you've mentioned them a couple of times. You're a big fan of the Chili's.
Oh man, I love the Chili's. Pearl Jam. I'm a big alt rock guy. I've always been, I always will be. In my later stages of life, I'm opening up my eyes to different genres, and I'm all about all types of genres, including jazz and classical. I love it all, really. Music is the universal language. Mm-hmm. But all the bands that I grew up listening to, well, now I'm interviewing them and I'm hanging out with them, and I'm going for a beer with that. Like, it's just a crazy change of like being the person on the outside looking in, literally, Muchmusic, the windows. Now I'm there hanging out with these people, and I still got butterflies to the last day. I'm a fan before anything of music, of bands. And I think that was a good thing. It kept the adrenaline going. It kept the nerves going. And these people, I always put them on pedestals because they're all rock stars, all the stars, the hip hop stars, the country stars. But meeting Jay-Z, Rihanna, and Kanye West on the same day during their Live at Much, right. That was incredible. Spending an hour with them, going to Jay-Z's hypnotic liquor release just an hour before the big show. It's like hanging out there and then hanging out in the environment. It's like pinch me. They're all pinch me moments.
Yeah. Did you get starstruck?
I did. Of course I did.
Yeah.
We started doing interviews with more actors back in the day. Tom Hanks, Harrison Ford, Ben Affleck, John Travolta. All the big name actors were starting to come in. And it was always about music, but now it was going more pop culture, movies, film, TV, bring the actors in. Why not? So when John Travolta came in and they said, Rick, you're going to interview John Travolta. I'm interviewing Vinnie Barbarino. It's like, what? This is incredible. So was I ever nervous? I was nervous. I'm a phys ed grad. I was going to become a teacher. I was nervous from day one until the last day in year 12 of my career at Much. It was like 11. I was 94 to 2005.
Yeah.
I was always, but there's nothing negative about nerves or being nervous. I think it prepares you even more for something, and it keeps you on your toes a bit more than when you're not nervous. That's my own play on it anyway.
Yeah. When you're nervous, the nerves just tell you that this is important, I think,
Yeah.
That there's something on the line, and especially live TV. I mean, I've done live TV, and it's just, there's nothing more exciting than that, because there's just so many opportunities for you to drop the ball, in a live setting.
Once it's out there. You can't get it back. It's out there. It's okay. That's what I just said. Let's continue on. And that happens so much, especially working with other VJs during specialty weekends, like the 80s weekends when Bill and I got together, or other specialty weekends, or any other time I was on with a co-host. Like, you just play off each other, and you don't really know where the other person's going. You just follow the ball, and you plan, you plan out a strategy and a plan of attack, but it's with live TV. Yeah, it goes there, but it always goes off on tangents, and you gotta follow the puck, right? It's like
those March break things you guys used to do were often pretty crazy.
Sand job, snow job.
Yeah.
Oh, those were so much fun. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
No one else was doing stuff like that. We were bringing bands to ski hills and to the beach down in Daytona. Like, I think even before MTV was doing that stuff, or maybe around the same time,
Right.
But we were just making it our own and having so much fun with it. And I'll never forget those moments or those events.
Yeah. Did you ever have an interview that you just wanted to crawl into a hole after? You just was somebody was just so difficult, or you just felt like, oh my God, I was out of my depth, or do you ever have moments like that?
Not as much at Much Music, but more so at ET Canada.
Yeah.
Like at Much Music, it just felt like 99.9% of the people that were coming through the environment, they were like, let's do this. Let's have fun. We're band, it's music, it's.
Yeah.
But I found that the actors, for some reason, the thespians were just a little more serious about their craft,
Sure.
So
Sure.
I had some difficult interviews with some older actors that will remain nameless.
Right.
Yeah, there's one curmudgeon that I can think of right now, but I'm not going to say his name. But
Yeah.
it just felt like the musicians, and it's a younger person's game, I guess. It was all about fun. And making people laugh, and it's music, right? So, yeah, no, I can't. I'm trying to remember right now, David, if I had any difficulties with anybody at Much. Maybe the closest I came to any difficulties was when the environment audience continued to ask Britney Spears about her dating Justin Timberlake when it was still a secret.
Oh, okay.
And she became a little standoffish, and she was putting all the blame on me, it seemed, because, well, I was the one that was moderating everything at her live at Much.
You hadn't put a cap on that quick enough.
Yeah. And in the commercial break, when her makeup artist came down to touch her up, I hear her saying, he keeps asking me about Justin. It's like, not me. It's your fans want to know.
Yeah.
So, but no, and that's nothing really. That's nothing. That was all fun stuff.
And
then a few weeks later, it breaks that they're dating.
They were a big power couple there.
They were a big power couple, and pop, and that was like that whole boy band and pop queen era was huge in the late 90s. And most of these bands were testing the waters here in Canada. Backstreet Boys came to Canada first to see how things would roll, right? Montreal, I think, was one of their first big markets. And then when it exploded, as you remember, well, they kept rolling out boy band after boy band and pop act after pop act, and it just grew and multiplied and became this monster, which made a lot of people a lot of money back then.
Yeah, it sure did.
and a lot of teenage girls very happy back then. Yeah. But I was just sort of pushed into that. I was sort of pigeonholed into that guy that's, okay, NSYNC are coming next week. Well, get Rick on it, get this, but it was good times, man. It was great times. Yeah.
And if those artists connect with you, they want to come back and chat, have this kept, similar conversations with the same people. And because you watch a lot of the interviews, and there's a lot of different shows where the interviewer's a little bit smug and they like to play a little bit gotcha. And I think those interviewers put the artists on their heels, and then they show up and they're like, is this guy going to be that guy? Like, and then when you have that nice connection, then it's like, oh, I can let my guard down and
that's what it was all about with all the VJs at Much Music. It was like we were their friends. We don't want to upset anybody. And later in the game, and one of the reasons why I left Much Music, it was more of, okay, well, you can't ask this question. You got to stay away from this topic. You got to ask about this. It was becoming a little bit more like assembly line, like robotic in a way. Because back when I first started, we were able to do anything we wanted on live TV. Yeah. If you can imagine that. And we got away with a lot. We had a lot of fun, and we weren't really pissing anyone off. We were just entertaining, really. But as it became more corporate and other people had more control over the VJs, it was time to go. Yeah. I didn't sign up for that. So.
Yeah. Well, exactly. That was around the same time too, that the radio industry was changing as well. And everything was becoming much more packaged.
much more packaged, of course,
Yeah.
which was, that's their approach, and you can't argue with that. And that's cool. I just preferred it a different way. And a lot of us did at the time. Like, having creative control over something in its entirety, that means a lot to me.
Yeah.
And it meant a lot to a lot of people, producers at the time. And when they started enforcing more restrictions and less this, it's not the same place.
Yeah, well, and especially in the early days too, Muchmusic was very much like the garage band of television stations, right?
Oh,
it was very, very punk rock and very just, pick up and go, and whatever happens. And, oftentimes, go ahead.
I was going to say, because it's a new beast and they're just exploring still and, throwing it, seeing it's going to stick. And that was the beauty of the time that Steve and Erica and Christopher and all these, Michael Williams, they were paving the way. Yeah. And they were doing it the way they wanted to do it. The next 10 years when I came in, sure, that was still there, but it was a little more, let's try it this way. And then those last 10 years when I was gone already, that just became, well, I don't even want to say what it became. It was all reality television.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I Googled Muchmusic the other day because I wasn't entirely sure. Like, I don't have a standard TV package anymore. I don't. So I wasn't really sure what was going on over there. I don't know. Do they do any live music hits? Do they do any interviews anymore? Do you know?
I don't think Muchmusic produces anything live anymore. I don't even know if there's. I don't have cable either. I just stream everything on Netflix and anything else. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. I know they still have an Instagram account, but I honestly don't know. It's definitely not the same place. Yeah, the place that we remembered. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It was, we're talking about just the people who would show up in the building and stuff, but just, the kids that would hang out outside on any given day, just hoping that they would see somebody or waiting to watch Electric Circus that was massive.
That was a massive staple on Friday nights. Well, Sunday afternoons and Friday nights, but you're right. Like, kids coming in from as far as Niagara Falls on any given day, or, if there was a school tour coming in, they'd hang out just to see who was going to walk through the doors. And we always had, there were always tours coming by, and sometimes we involved the tour in the shows, but it was nonstop, just a constant flow of just people coming in to see how TV and how it all worked. And that made that place special because we didn't close the doors to anyone. Like, anyone was welcome anytime, basically.
Yeah.
And that was the beauty of the place, because 9 Inch Nails could have been in there, Trent Reznor could have been in there doing an interview, and there would be a tour walking by. It's like how cool is that? Yeah. And if you were the lucky one that was part of a tour on the day that Trent Reznor was there, well, that's a once in a lifetime type thing.
Yeah.
If you're a 9 Inch Nails,
sure.
a 9 Inch Nails fan.
I am a big 9 Inch Nails fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, seen them in Toronto quite a few times. Oh, yeah, yes. They're a great band to see live.
Did you ever see them at Molson Park in Barrie?
No, I've never.
That was a crazy.
Never seen any shows up there.
Oh,
I've seen them at the amphitheater. It's a funny thing. There's something haunting about electronic music. Like, I've seen Depeche Mode there too. Yeah. In a summer night in Toronto, during if the CNE's going on too, you can see the Ferris wheel, all the lights and stuff.
Beautiful setting.
Just that haunting. Hearing 9 Inch Nails, hearing Trent sing "Hurt." It's just such a. I love that venue.
That's a gorgeous venue.
Stage.
Right by the water there, and when they first put that in, because it used to be called the Forum. Now this is going way back, where it was like end around type thing, and the stage would rotate. Do you remember? I remember seeing with my older brother, Toto, I believe. Remember the band Toto?
Yeah.
Now I'm going back maybe to like the early 80s, but wherever my older brothers went, and they're the reason I got into music, well, I wanted to go. Yeah. I remember I was 7 and they went to go see Kiss at Maple Leaf Gardens. And I asked my parents if I can go along with my older brothers. And I was 7. And I'm glad they said no, because I probably would have had nightmares for a long time. but all those classic venues that aren't there anymore. I remember seeing some great bands, of course, some great sporting events too. But yeah, getting back to the Budweiser stage, that's a gorgeous, you know, you got the hill, you're outside on a beautiful summer night. You know, you got the exhibition in the background, the water towards your back there. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful setting.
It is. And you know, you mentioned the Forum. I don't know if the plans have changed, but the last I had heard that they were planning on doing with Ontario Place is putting another round stage back in there, the rotating stage.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know. That's amazing.
Yeah. That was one of the things they were talking about, but I don't know. There's still lots of talks ongoing about what they're going to do to fix, you know, to use that property going forward. So I don't know if that's still going to happen, but that'd be cool.
Well, we're definitely going to be able to go see live concerts again. I don't know how soon that's going to be, David, but I am craving just like being there at a venue and just, you know, beer in hand and just watching a band up on stage and singing along. I can't wait for that day. I know. Yeah. It's been too long.
Yeah, it feels weird not to do that. My wife and I, we go to so many live shows in the summers and mostly in the summer and stuff. And to not have done that for over a year just feels like such an odd thing.
Hopefully spring 2021.
Yeah. Once that vaccine starts rolling out.
Once the vaccine starts rolling out, let's get back up there on stage, boys. Yeah.
So you've been lucky. You've been fortunate. You've had two big gigs with two big staples. You got the chance to work for Much for a decade, and then you worked for ET Canada for a decade, pretty much as well. What experience was that like compared to living in the world of Muchmusic?
I had to grow up real fast and wear suits all the time. And I'm not a guy that wore suits all the time. I probably had a suit for a wedding back in the day, but now I must have like 70 suits in my basement that I got to get rid of someday. I'm not going to use that many suits again, but I was in the grown-up world now. This big franchise that had been a staple in the US for so many years prior to coming up here. And now we're part of this brand. And I thought I had to do things a certain way at Muchmusic. Well, welcome to this world. Yeah. You know, they even sent me down to LA for delivery lessons. Like delivery of my voice and my whole being. Like almost in a way, they were changing the person they hired. I don't know, but more announcer, right? In a way.
And that was that a difficult transition, or
that was a difficult transition. That was tough because that I don't remember that being me, but no big deal. I wanted that job and I wanted to be whoever they wanted me to be, to tell you the truth, because it was such an honor to hold that position. So and it was all studio work. Most of it was all in the studio, and that's the way you had to be. Now, the hits weren't as long as the Muchmusic hits because those were live hits. You know, sometimes we were interviewing bands like we talked about earlier. Now these hits, these spots were all short, concise, to the point, announce, get out there, be loud, and move on to the piece. So it was a different type of beast, but one that I enjoyed and spent 12 years at. And I really loved every minute of it. Because now we were broadening my horizons a little bit more, because it was all music, and now it's more actors, musicians, interesting people, politicians, all sorts of people in all walks of life. So that was cool. And I always liked meeting people and chatting with people.
Yeah. Well, who are some of the people that you met that surprised you, or, you know?
Well, it's those people that you think, those untouchables that are like these godlike type feature people, like Tom Hanks. Yeah. George Clooney, Julia Roberts. Right. It's like these people have done so much in their careers, and they are still such humble and down to earth and generous people still. And you wouldn't think that. You think they'd have a bit of a, some little attitude, but it's the people. And Henry Winkler, I got to put Henry Winkler on that list. These people have been at the game so long, and they know how to treat people, and that's why they've been at it so long. They're not just talented people, because there's a lot of not nice people out there that are very talented, but these people are very talented, and they're so sweet, and they're real people, they're genuine, and they know how to treat people. And that's a testament to their longevity in their careers.
Sure. Yeah. People want to work with Tom Hanks.
Right?
For a reason.
For a reason. The guy is incredible. I don't know how many Academy Awards he has, but we read the stories of him jogging in Central Park and, passing by a couple that just got married. They're getting their wedding pictures done. He poses with them. And there's just all these stories about Tom just being a down-to-earth, fun guy.
Right.
And a super talent. I remember first watching Tom on Bosom Buddies,
right,
the sitcom back in the 70s, because my mom, that was one of her favorite shows. And I would watch what my mom watched. And to see where he started and where he's come and where he's still going, it's like the guy is one of my tops.
Yeah. Yeah. Or watching George Clooney on Facts of Life.
That's right. Look at that.
He played like
right?
a handyman or something.
I think he was the handyman. Yeah, the maintenance guy. Yeah, for Tootie and
he worked at Edna's Edibles.
Yeah. and you don't remember him. It wasn't a standout back then, but that combination of talent, a good person, willing to do what it takes, and now look at him. He's on top of the world. These guys are on top of the world, picking and choosing projects. Yeah, directing projects, producing projects, doing what they want to do in life.
We were talking earlier about some actors that are prickly. You didn't want to mention anybody, but I can think of a couple guys that I know. I've had friends who have interviewed, and they were so nervous going in. One was Tommy Lee Jones, right? He's notorious for chewing people up, and Han Solo himself. Harrison Ford. Well, I got people were nervous about him.
Because you hear all these stories in this junket setting with all the junketeers, all the movie people. Oh, have you interviewed him yet? He's going to give you a tough time. It's all this talk beforehand. Now, to tell you the truth, when I sat down with Tommy Lee Jones, I knew all this going into it. Sure, he was a tough interview, but if you knew your stuff, if you broke the ice with something special, if you got a smile out of him at first in that first 30 seconds, well, your interview is bound to be a good one and not a bad interview like most of his interviews are.
Right.
But yeah, they're tough. They're tough. And rightly so. I understand it. These guys have been at it for years and they want you to know your stuff. You even hear sometimes with Robert De Niro or, and Robert doesn't do a lot of interviews these days, but you got to be prepared. You got to be prepared and you got to know your stuff. These are professionals at the top of their game who've been at it for decades and decades. And then just some guy comes along, who's, a quarter of their age. And you got to really impress these people. You got to really impress them.
I think the thing too is that some of those actors come by that honestly, because as I don't know how much the average listener knows about how that works. There's a junket system, right? And they rent out a couple hotel rooms and the actor sits in there all day long and the reporters come in and ask questions all day long, and that's everybody from you to whoever's doing the movie stuff at Sky at Community 22 or whatever.
That's right.
To everybody. And they get asked the lamest questions all day long. And then, and they got to endure that. And then once in a while, somebody comes in and knows something about film or knows something about the film in particular, doesn't just want to know, what was it like to kiss Julia Roberts in the movie?
Yes. Yeah.
Or what was it like to be in a sex scene with such and such? It's like, it's horrible to be in a sex scene in a movie. It's on
set with 20 people looking on. Yeah. No, you're right. And I always said the two best slots to have at a junket are the very first one or the very last one.
Yeah.
You're going to get the actor at his or her best. You're the first one asking the first questions of the day. They haven't heard those questions yet. You try to make them different. You want to make them different. You want to make them stand out. And that last interview of the day, and I've been in that slot so many times, the actor's just so excited to get up and out of there. Yeah. They're gonna answer your questions with a smile, And they're going to go on and on and on if they like your questions. So it's great. You have all the time in the world. I remember that happened with Leonardo DiCaprio in Cannes at the festival. And he was promoting The Great Gatsby. And it was great. I was the last one. I'd waited a long time because it was a bit of a delay here and there. But I remember him giving me an extra 2 minutes. And 2 minutes, it doesn't sound like a lot to you and I or your listeners, but you're only given 4 minutes in junkets, 4 minutes tops in a junket setting. Well, you get out 4 questions, 5 questions tops. So to get an extra couple minutes with someone like Leonardo DiCaprio, it was amazing. So yeah, the first slot or the last slot, I'm always going to go for those two. If I ever get back in the junket world, yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything that have you discovered any kind of universal truths about celebrity, or is there anything that you've learned about that world after dealing with celebrities for so many years? Is there anything you learned about that?
Yeah, fame? You know what? You don't, especially when it comes to talking to celebrity, you don't want to stray too far from their comfort zone. Sometimes you do if you're looking for that answer that no one else has the answer to. But once you start making a person uncomfortable, I feel that the whole dynamic changes, and not for the better. So, and I learned that over time. I was just trying to be a friend to these people that came in. I tried to make it as simple and smooth as possible. I'm talking about the interviews now. And I always prepared myself the best way I could, just in case anything came up in that interview. And then I wanted to know about that. So yeah. And we got to talk to a lot of people. People are funny sometimes because you go down a wrong direction with someone and that changes everything. Yeah. And you want to make sure that person wants to come back, even if it's not with you. You don't want to upset your boss. You don't want to upset the viewer. You don't want to upset the person that you're interviewing. So it's a slippery slope and a tricky one at times to navigate. Yeah. With celebrity, you almost have to do a lot of praising at times, Sure. Build them up, butter them up, which isn't a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, because the more you do that, and if you could do that the right way, well, the better their answers are going to be. Sure. And the more time they're going to want to spend with you. So it's almost like trying to get them on your side and becoming their friend in a matter of, those first 30 seconds of meeing them. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's tricky, man. It's tricky.
It's like dating.
It's like dating, speed dating. Yeah. Well, the only thing that the way it's not is that these people from whether it's their music, their acting, or their character. You think you know them, but then when you get in front of them as a person, they could be a totally different person. But that's the only difference. You think you know them from their body of work. That they've been doing for years, but they can be a totally different person. Yeah.
Well, and Erica talked about that in the interview, and I saw more. I remember watching where she was talking to a band, and they would start in on some stuff that was not very cool, stuff that you would not be able to pull off talking to a woman these days.
Right.
On air. And she talked about also being out in the public and that level of people feeling like they know you, familiarity. Yeah. Right? Because you do live in their living room. And they're like, I know this person. You must get that all the time. People come up
but
to
you know what the difference is? And Erica talked about that too. And she had some issues with that along the way. With me, I was always, especially in high school, university, I was very social. I liked meeting people. I liked talking to people. I liked socializing. Yep. And it made it easier, I guess, with the job that I had, because I didn't really have to break the ice too much. I guess when people approached me, they knew what I did. They knew what I was all about, and you got to know somebody. So I didn't mind it at all until a couple creepy people started stalking you over time. Yeah. That's when it gets worrisome, because you don't know what this person's intentions are. Are they a fan of the show that you're on? Are they a fan of music? Are they a fan of film? Or is there something else there? So you get to be a good judge of character and read people and find out about them in a matter of seconds. Yeah. And you see the good. I see the good in everyone. I really, it's like that Sloan song. I saw the good in everyone, and I put that out there and I'm very trustworthy. But then there's a few characters that come along that
you get that sort of Eminem Stan effect.
That's right.
I saw that video yesterday.
Oh man,
I was like, wow, that's creepy.
Yes. Oh, I remember. I still remember premiering some of Eminem's videos for the first time on Muchmusic. That's how long ago I was there. Jeez. It's crazy.
He was massive.
He was huge.
Yeah.
Slim Shady, he was huge, man. And he paved the way for so many rappers.
Yeah. There's not a lot of Canadian artists or interviewers that I would say have become celebrities or famous, but you became famous, from the moment they announced you as Rick the Temp. All of a sudden you were Rick the Temp. Nobody called you by your last name anymore. Did you try to distance yourself from that for a while? Did that bug you, or was it just that's how I got in? I'm not going to.
Yeah. I was just happy to be there, David, to tell you the truth. It was a good handle. It was, there are worse handles out there. Rick the Temp sort of grew on me and on people. And my mom and dad were very proud once I started bringing in the last name. That's for sure. I don't know what year that was, but when I started using Rick Campanelli or Rick the Temp Campanelli, they said, oh, yeah, that's our son. That's our son. But no, yeah, to tell you the truth, I was just honored to have that job as a VJ. It really was back then what everybody and their sister wanted to do.
Yeah.
It felt like that anyway. I was fortunate. I was lucky enough to win this contest, and I was lucky enough to hold that position for 11 years. And I thank my lucky stars every day, because that turned into something else. And anybody could have had that job. I could have gone on to become a teacher, but there was something in the stars back in 94, and that changed my life. It changed my career, and it was a job. We all have jobs, and it was a cool job. Don't get me wrong. I loved going into work every day, and I was just fortunate enough to hold it. So if some people look at it as me as a celebrity, that's awesome. That's cool. I get embarrassed when that term comes up. I was interviewing celebrities, no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm.
I was interviewing people that were known worldwide. And I was just the guy asking the questions and introducing the videos, and something that I was quite passionate about back in the day. So.
Yeah, but after 2 decades of being on camera, I'm sure when you go out to restaurants and stuff like that, whether it's with when you're dating or with your wife and kids or whatever, you probably spend a lot of time talking to people at restaurants and as coming in and out and
much
and having
to the
chats
chagrin
about,
of my. Yeah. I do like talking to people. Maybe I talk too much sometimes, but I do like my privacy, no doubt about that. I like being alone, but I do like people. And yeah, I can remember my first wife not really enjoying that as much as I did when we went out to restaurants, but it was part of the package, I guess. And yeah, I don't know. It's, like I said earlier, I liked meeting people and I liked finding out about people, and it was just becoming a lot more in my face when I was on Muchmusic.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't like people that much. Okay, stay away, will you? No.
I was taking the subway in the late 90s with my buddy Joe. I think you know Joe as well, Joseph Motiki. He was for a lot of years. He was a host of TVO Kids Crawl Space.
Yes.
And so the kids knew him, and then we were on the busy subway coming home from work one day when I worked there with him, and there was this kid staring at him. He had that look like. And Joe,
it's Joe.
Yeah. And Joe realized, and he looked over and he said hi, and he says, "Oh, hi, my name is such and such, and oh, it's nice to meet you, and you watch a show. I got a postcard, I'll sign it for you and stuff." And then he said, I remember he's like it was yesterday. He says really loudly on the subway as everybody's listening to our conversation. He says, "I have one question for you, Joseph Motiki. What are you doing taking public transportation?"
Yeah.
He just couldn't believe. He couldn't believe this guy who he always watched on TV was actually taking the TTC.
That's hilarious. Shouldn't you be in the back of a limousine with James as your driver?
Yeah, exactly.
That's hilarious. Well, that was the perception, David, back then, still is to this day. That's Canadian television for you right there. And more specifically, being in Toronto, well, we're all human. We're all, I liked taking the subway too, like Joseph, like you, like a lot of people, and a lot of people still do take the subway and ride the public transit. And it's like, some people think, shouldn't you be taking your helicopter from, the penthouse of your condominium to work? It's like, well, wow, geez. You just,
how you
and
get
I guess
around in
back
big
then in
cities,
the day when we were viewers, I guess that was what we thought as well. But it was a quick realization when I got hired in my first year that, that wasn't going to be happening anytime soon after receiving your first paycheck in Canadian TV. Yeah. Now, did Joe travel around with postcards in his knapsack for moments like this? With a Sharpie ready to go?
Yeah. Well, the TVO always, every year they produce new postcards for that season with information about the show and pictures of the hosts and stuff. And he always had a bunch of them in his bag and stuff. And he's done many other things over the years. I think he's still got some postcards that he's made recently that he signs.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
See, we jumped onto that later in the game, I guess, because I just remember signing at first like ripped pieces of paper or pieces of napkin or, to have a postcard that you traveled with. Wow. That was, even I'm surprised by that. And that was,
well, they wanted they wanted the kids to tune in. I remember like even at TVO where they didn't have a huge budget, but every once in a while they'd buy up the side of half of the buses in Toronto to put up the new posters for the new season or whatever.
Yeah.
Or, put them up.
Yeah, if Muchmusic didn't get to those bus stops first, then TVO got in there. Yeah, exactly, or YTV. Or I'm just joking.
Yeah. Well, I remember working for YTV too. I remember working on a couple of YTV awards and the red carpet and the limousines pulling up and they used to go all in.
Oh yeah.
A lot of money on those shows.
Oh, yeah, they did. Well, they wanted it to be the show. And I remember a show like that we did, the Muchmusic Video Awards. They went all out with that show. And it was huge. And, of course, because they were attracting some huge international artists and more of those artists as the years went by. And it was the hottest ticket in town, I remember. And similar to those shows that you did back then. Those shows, everyone wanted to be a part of those shows. There's stories where they were turning people away left, right, and center. People are trying to crash those shows, those parties. And, sometimes when the security guards didn't know the video directors, like Spike Jonze, for example, well, they turned them away because you don't really know the video directors.
Right, you
know the bands that are making the videos, but you don't know the directors. So this amazing director is directing and he's up for an award and security didn't recognize him, or they thought, no, you're not Spike Jonze.
Yeah.
And they turned him away. It blows my mind, but it happens. It happens.
Yeah.
When it's a show like that, you're not, I guess as a security guard, you're not taking any chances. And it was funny.
Oh, you must have got calls from everybody you knew too, looking for tickets for Muchmusic Awards and all that kind of stuff. And
I still did years after leaving Muchmusic. I still did years after. Can you still help my son get in, or my friend, and I did the best I could. I always wanted people to enjoy it as much as I did. So when I got my allotted number of wristbands or tickets, I made sure I gave them out to the right people.
Yeah. And what? When did you leave ET Canada? That was
back in 2017. I got let go from ET Canada, the summer of 2017.
Oh yeah.
Gosh, 3.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Insane.
You're a freelancer like the rest of us.
I'm a freelancer.
After being with two major franchises,
yes, sir.
You're a freelancer. Was that scary after 2 solid decades of kind of, or did you always know that did you always feel like, oh, this is a gig is solid? Muchmusic?
You know what?
There? Like, because Erica said she always kind of felt like they might pull a rug out from under her. Did you feel that way?
I thought it was more solid at ET Canada than Muchmusic. At Muchmusic, when you start getting older and having babies, that's around the time that they start looking at you like, wait, you're having a baby? You're having kids? We hire kids here.
Yeah.
Now it's about time you think about leaving. So I always felt more comfortable at ET Canada. So when I got the call into the office, that was a sucker punch to me. Yeah. It felt like, because I wasn't expecting it. No.
Yeah, and that's often how it happens, isn't it?
Yeah. When you're least expecting. But everything happens for a reason. One door closes, another one opens. It was a blessing in disguise, David, because it allowed myself to spend more time with my family, with my young kids. I was a father, a full-time father. I get to spend more time with my older siblings and my father. I had just lost my mom 5 years ago. So it was a stage of my life where, okay, I lose my full-time job at this prestigious network. It's okay. It hurts at first, but you move on. And my family's the most important out of anything. And I got to be there as a full-time dad for my young boys. And my youngest, Harrison, just started school full-time a few months ago. He's 4. So I got to spend all those years, those very crucial, precious years with him as a full-time dad. So it's been great. It's been my favorite out of all my jobs.
Yeah.
Full-time dad.
Because when you were with ET Canada, were you traveling a lot for that? Were you were you often flying?
There was a lot of travel, even much, and more so with ET Canada. So yeah, I've got a 15-year-old son. So I was there as a dad. I was there as a hands-on dad, but I was able to spend a lot more time with my younger two because, man, it was either here or there. I loved that. Don't get me wrong. I loved that part of the job because those were the junkets. Those were the interviews that you the one-on-ones with people if they weren't in studio. So I really looked forward to those, but there was a downside, leaving your family for a while.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's difficult. And so was it a little scary after having 2 solid jobs for 2 decades to be out, to be freelancing, to be on your own again?
Yeah, because what's next? Okay, TV's done for the moment anyway.
Yeah.
And I didn't really pursue it aggressively to get back on TV because I was so comfortable and loving my new role as a full-time dad. But then the whole world of social media and branding and partnership happened, which was amazing. Yeah. So I was still able to be creative and create content for Instagram and Facebook and Twitter or whatever, what have you. And it's been quite amazing, actually. It's been very lucrative, if you can imagine. And, it's not what I plan on doing forever. I want to get back on TV one day, but it's paying the bills for now. And we all need an income. We've all got mortgages and bills. So yeah, I thought it was going to be very sparse, but it's been great. And this past year has been tough for everyone, as you can understand. But, there's brighter days ahead.
Yeah,
for sure
yeah.
In 2021.
Well, and the wonderful thing about your situation, too, is that people know you. Is that somebody's going to hire you? They figure they know what you're getting because they've seen.
That's right.
They've seen what you've been doing. They know who you are. They also know that you're. You've always seemed to have a really good reputation as being a family dad, and you're not the guy. You don't hear about stories about Rick Campanelli out getting wasted and getting tossed in the drum tank.
No, because I squash all those stories before they go public. Anyway.
There you go. You got a good team around you.
My priority is my family. It's always been my family, and that's the way it's going to be forever. It's some people choose that other road to go down, and listen, I was there in the good old days, and I was a part of being at Muchmusic. The sex, the drugs, the rock and roll. Well, I was more about the last part of it, rock and roll all the time. But you're in that world, and it's bound to happen. So yeah. There were a few situations, but if you continue to make those situations an ongoing occurrence, that's trouble. That's trouble. That's not me. So I wanted to make sure I was in this industry, in this business for as long as possible. And 20 plus years, a good run. And if I never get back on TV ever again, I'll be happy with that. Listen, I want to get back on. I'm trying to get back on.
Well, we have the same agent
listening right now.
We have the same agent. Does that do you go out and audition for acting gigs?
No.
You don't?
I usually do the self-tapes now. On my phone. I don't go. I'm so intimidated still to this day, David. When I walk into a room and I see 6 other guys sitting around there, it's like my confidence level goes right down because I'm not from that world originally, and I'm still learning as I go. So yeah, I know you're right. We do have the same agent. If things come up, and I feel more comfortable with auditioning in front of my iPhone.
Sure.
I very rarely get those parts, but I'm still going to try and continue, but
Yeah, but
I'm
you
talking
know that.
about for more like TV hosting gigs.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But I mean, auditioning is not acting. It's the worst. You know what I mean? It's such an uncomfortable situation. It's a weird
is.
situation.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
when you walk into a room and you have sometimes 5 or 6 people watching you do something, and getting critiqued because of what you're wearing or whatever. It's an odd thing. Actors love being actors, but actors do not love auditioning. Nobody likes auditioning.
Once you've acted for 20 years, you just expect to be given the role, right? Well, I got to audition again. It's like, what? Like everyone's sizing you up. It's so uncomfortable.
Yeah, but self-tapes, you're right. Self-tapes are great for that because you get to do it in the comfort of your own home, and
that's right.
You got lots of tries, and you can send in your best material.
That's
whatever.
Right. Like 4 hours later, you can have this 10-second take. There you go.
Yeah.
I really do hope it all gets back to normal sooner rather than later. I signed on with Cineplex Entertainment back in January. I did some stuff for the Academy Awards this past year, and then it all went to hell. With COVID, and I was really inspired again. I was really excited again to get back into that world of doing junkets and going to LA or New York or wherever to interview the George Clooney's and the Julia Roberts once again. But you go on this high before COVID, and then COVID hits and everything gets shut down, and then you're back to a low. And so, but I know after coming out of this low, we're going to get back up there high again. I'm hoping to get back into that world because I do miss it. I really do miss it. I've missed it ever since being let go. And coming this close with Cineplex to have that role again, it excited me. And I need to be excited. And I am excited in life normally, but with a gig like that. So I'm hoping, knocking on wood right now, that the spring of 2021 brings us amazing things. The vaccine is going to be out. Hopefully we're going to be able to interact with people again and get to doing these junkets again. And that was my favorite thing to do.
Yeah. Well, like you were saying, I mean, I feel the same way. And there's some encouraging stuff. I was reading an article in one of the Toronto papers, I think it might have been the Star the other day, about how a lot of the studios are rapidly expanding in Toronto right now, that there's so much demand. I think a lot of it's got to do with the way that the virus was handled in the US. I think companies want to come up and shoot here. They obviously get good value for their money. But right now there's a brand new studio opening up in Hamilton that used to be a plant. The Pinewoods is expanding. They're building new buildings out along the waterfront. So I think there's a lot of amazing things coming. There's more and more production going to be coming to Toronto in the future, and that means that more and more projects are going to need to be covered by somebody with your expertise. So it is exciting times coming.
It starts with the infrastructure and building these places, and then bringing the people in to produce the films and shows. But it's there's promise, that's for sure. And the coronavirus will be under control one day, not in the near future, but we will be back to a normal one day. And there'll be a few changes to that normal, as we've already started noticing, but we're going to be back at it. I know we are. I'm positive. I'm optimistic. We all should be.
Yeah. I think in a year from now, you'll probably be interviewing John Travolta in a hazmat suit. It'll be that, like the Bubble Boy movie he did. Remember, he was like the Bubble Boy.
We did. Oh my God, I do remember that bubble. He had to kiss his girlfriend from inside the bubble when she approached. Yeah. Oh yeah. I cried during that movie, The Bubble Boy. That was a sad one. But he played that role to a T, John Travolta.
Yeah. Well, look, man, it was great talking to you. I've always enjoyed watching you over the years on Much and ET Canada, and you've always been an engaging on-camera person and presence in our home. So it's nice to meet you and chat with you, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you for the nice words, David. It was great to spend this time with you. And if you're a surfer, please get out there and hit some waves for me in Costa Rica. I'm dying to do that one day. Maybe next summer I'll come join you, and we'll ride the waves. You were curious about the lifestyle here, and we can chat more about that if you're interested. By the way, my last episode, I interviewed a guy named Malcolm Hill, and that was episode 20. And he and his wife moved from Australia and have their own surf school here. So if you come down,
I can hook you up.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I've been to Costa Rica. I love it. It's beautiful. The beautiful people there. And all right, I'm penciling it in for the year 2021. I don't know if it's going to be January or next December, but it's going to happen. I'm going to make things happen. We got to make things happen.
We're going to have that conversation then.
All right, David.
All right. Take care, brother.
Nice chatting with you.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you.
There you have it, my conversation with Mr. Rick Campanelli. A big thanks to Rick for sharing his cool story. Here's something I'd like to put out to you, my listeners. One way for me to grow my podcast audience is by having listeners like you review the show. So, if you would be so kind, I would love it if you could write a short review of the show on the platform that you use to stream Cool Story with David J. McNeil. You can also leave your thoughts or suggestions for upcoming guests on the show in the comment section of the My Cool Story YouTube channel, if that is where you listen to the show. If you do so, I will try to make time at the end of an upcoming episode to share your comments with listeners. Here are 2 reviews that were recently posted on the show's iTunes page. The first is from D. Ollie, who writes, "Whether famous or upcoming or seemingly a regular everyday person, everyone has a story, and I love how this podcast gets to the heart of everyone's experience." And Big Oak 23 writes, "This is a podcast for you if you want to be a Navy SEAL, a pod entrepreneur, a comedian, TV producer, kind of a how-to. Actually, just a really great listen, because great stories." So thank you very much to D. Ollie and Big Oak 23 for your kind words of encouragement. It's great to know that you're listening and that my guests' cool stories are reverberating. I'd also like to mention the Cool Story with David J. McNeil so far does not feature any advertising or product placement to pay the bills. We do, however, have a Patreon account. So if you would like to support the show by making a small monthly pledge, please visit patreon.com/coolstory with David J. McNeil. Patreon being spelled Patreon. Also, thanks again to Mr. Jerry Stamp, who wrote and performed the Cool Story theme song and all other jingles and stings that appear on the show. Do yourselves a favor and look for Jerry's music wherever you stream. And finally, thank you for listening. Until next time, pura vida.
Everybody's had some adventures. Everybody's had a few close calls. Everybody's got a story. What's yours?